All right, let's dive into this month's question of the week here with Red Door Property Management, and this is where we really dive into and dissect questions that I come across every single week, every single day when owners are calling in investigating our property management services. And a lot of the times you'll get owners, and I'm sure if you're watching this right now and you've looked for property management companies, this is a strategy that you've used personally, and that's just jumping on Google and asking Google for what questions should I ask my property management company, and then they run through that list, right? And that's fine. It's a fine place to start. But if you've found this podcast, then you found an avenue to develop better questions that are going to result in an answer that's going to help you really align with the right property management company. And if you're only asking the most basic questions, like here it is, this is one that I got literally this week, and of course, Mike and I, we do this podcast and we dive into all the nitty gritty details all the time. And it's very difficult for me sometimes when someone asks these questions. I immediately jump into teacher mode, professor mode. I want to educate them right there on the spot, and I have to refrain and just play the customer service representative and just answer their questions to the best of my ability and provide some surface level information. But the question I got was, what's your eviction rate? Okay. It was a very basic question, and they just wanted a hard number. And the truth behind so many of these questions is when you ask that, I could tell you zero, right? I could tell you our eviction rate is zero. We don't ever process evictions. That's just the reality of it. The likeliness that you're going to get an honest answer from the person on the other side of that phone who's looking to close the deal here is so unlikely. Yeah. And that's the first thing I think of is like, ma'am, sir, I can tell you anything I want right now, and you'll just gonna gobble it up. What you need to do is rephrase your question so that you can get an articulate answer from the person that's on the other line. And if they can successfully articulate, which I'm not always able to do, if you've watched these podcasts, you know that I will glip, slip, blip all over the place. But when it comes to property management, I don't typically mess up in response to these type of questions. Anyway, here's the question that I would suggest you ask instead. And that's, what preventative steps do you take to avoid evictions in the first place? And this can be a very wide open answer, but like I do when I ask these questions, Mike, I'm going to let you take over. So that's my gripe with the question and the way to rephrase it. Mike, if that question came to you, what's going to be your answer? What preventative steps do you take to avoid evictions in the first place?
Yeah, and I think I would maybe internally, I would say, what is your delinquency process? I mean, we have a very well thought out delinquency process that automatically kicks in on the second of the month. Our tenants are late on the second of the month, so we don't have any grace period is 1 day. So we start on day 2, and we start contacting them on day 2. We have a very structured process from day 2 to day 15, and then we start talking about the eviction if we need to. So I guess that's what it would be. So what is your delinquency process look like? And if it's not well defined, then you've probably got a problem. Because you're right, Chris. That is such a relative question. The other thing is that you ask that to 3 different companies. It's so going to depend on their portfolio of homes that they manage. I mean, if you manage a bunch of C-class homes, guess what? Your eviction rate is going to be a lot higher than if you manage A and B properties. So you got to take that into consideration as well. So it's not about what your eviction rate is. It is what's your process, what's your delinquency process, and how do you hold tenants accountable, and how do you communicate with me as an owner if and when we do have delinquencies? Guess what? It's going to happen. And so we try to ride the line of, we want to keep our owners involved, but we also don't want to freak them out every 10 seconds. I mean, that's why we're here, to kind of be the buffer. Right. So if somebody's 1 day late, we're not going to sound the alarm bells and say, oh, we didn't get paid on the 1st. But if it's the 5th and your distribution is going to be affected this month, well, then we need to open the conversation with the owner and let them know what's going on. So that's kind of how we handle it here. Is we just have a really well-defined delinquency process. communication with the owner, communication with the tenant, constant updates, and that's how we do it here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I knew I should have answered this question first because now it looks like I'm just dovetailing on what you said. Dang it. No, seriously. I broke it down really into 3 categories that should be discussed during it, because these are all things that are going to affect in some way your eviction process or your eviction rate. Delinquency, you nailed it. So it's about having a super well-defined process. And this is
Yep.
really what separates Red Door from other property management companies right now, is because we have spent the last, God, year and a half, maybe 2 years now,
Yep.
really nailing down, and I mean every process that comes along with property management. We'll get into those other processes, but I really want to focus on the eviction process here and with delinquency. So that's right. As of day 2, there are no grace days whatsoever. That is when the late discussion happens, and that's with text, that's with email, that is with phone calls. These are all happening as of day 2. As of a week late, we are starting to engage in the communication with the owner, right? Because you want to know if your disbursement's going to be disrupted by has the tenant paid or not. And then as of 2 weeks, right around the 15-day mark, we are discussing the possibility of an eviction depending on what type of communication. And that gets me to my next point here, the communication aspect. We are discussing the possibility of eviction. And this delinquency follow-up process will absolutely result in less habitual offenders because
Yep.
they know that there are consequences when there's no action from the tenant, no communication from the tenant, or lack of payment from the tenant. So it's having a nailed down process that is going to affect that eviction rate. Number 2, communication. Yes, you absolutely nailed it. And this is on all aspects, which I just kind of dabbled on both, but that's communication with the tenant. Your rent is late. These are the steps that could be enacted if your payment is not received. It's also a communication with the owner. So again, this is going to affect habitual offenders and preventing habitual offenders, and by that effect, affecting your eviction rate over time. And the last part is inspection. So there are a lot of management companies who are going to say that they perform an inspection. So it's number 1, actually performing the inspection is massive. But number 2, not just performing the inspection, but actually holding tenants responsible when that inspection happens. So, and that could sometimes result in that eviction discussion. But if you are doing routine inspections, so which we do 3 months into a new lease, but not only that, our maintenance team is also trained to do a visual inspection each and every time that they're in the property. So if the walls are heavily worn above normal wear and tear, what action needs to be taken? We do take action. We do inform that tenant. And we inform them of what actions can be taken. They're given 30 days to resolve the issue and prove that it's been resolved, or that action would be taken. So and that again can dovetail back into communication, but I think all 3 of those factors are going to heavily weigh on your eviction rate. If you can draw attention to each of these areas in an effective manner early enough in the process, you can avoid an eviction. And that's what I mean by performing that inspection, drawing the tenant's attention to a violation, having them address it before it explodes into a missing wall in the living room. You know, when because that can be avoided, which is going to inevitably result in eviction. But you want to draw their attention to it earlier so that you can avoid the eviction. So it's all of those aspects are going to affect your eviction rate. And the person you're talking to on the other line better be able to articulate that in the way that we just did, or you should be working with somebody else, in my opinion.
Yep.
If they're just throwing you, our eviction rate is 2%. That is no. That is not what you want. That is not what you want to hear on the other side of that phone
Yep.
call, I assure you. So,
Yep.
anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you mentioned it's really just about holding the tenants accountable for on-time payments, for keeping the home in good condition. But they know that, hey, if you don't pay by the 2nd of the month, like, we're going to start to hound you. It's going to be texts, it's going to be emails, it's going to be phone calls, might be a visit to the property, all of the above. But they know that there are consequences if and when they don't pay on time. So that's really
Yeah.
what our owners are paying us to do, and so that's what we do.
Yeah, and I was going to wrap it right there, but I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the importance, because really it starts with the market readiness, right? If you're preparing the property properly, you're going to attract higher quality tenants.
Yeah.
But when you're defensive on the front end and you refuse to paint that one wall that's
Yep.
all marked up because you think it's a rental property and that rental properties are just that, rental properties, that
Yep.
is a terrible mindset to have from day one. And that is what's going to result in a higher eviction rate. I guarantee it.
Yep.
But if you prepare a property that's going to draw in a quality of tenant who is very likely, and life events happen for everybody, but that is very likely going to result in a well-qualified individual who pays their bills on time. You need to have a product that appeals to just that type of individual. So really, it starts right there with the market readiness. So you can, I think we talked about this, and I know we've talked about this in previous podcasts. Go check out the channel, check out one of those previous videos because in fact, we have some new content that we're going to drop coming out. It's going to be hitting our website here over the next couple weeks. And I'm going to push our team to also throw them up on our YouTube channel in a very unique way. So check those out. We really dive into the importance of a market readiness assessment and why that's important. But anyway, all right, I'm going down a hole here, which I can sometimes do. That's going to wrap up this month's question of the week. So stay tuned for next month's question of the week, where I'm probably going to dive into a couple more of these that are just, they're biting at the bit. They're biting at the bit. So stay tuned. Check them out. We're going to dive into the market reports here next. So you can check those out in another video.